So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to do these side areas here. There's one on each side. Okay. And we're going to use a profiling operation. Okay. And we're going to select these curves I already have selected here or drawn. Okay. And one thing to notice here is that this curve runs from here around and then it loops up. You're not constrained to selecting your geometry on the XY plane. It doesn't have to be flat. You can pick anywhere on the model that you want the tool to follow. Okay, and it'll project, the program will project it down flat for you. So you don't have to worry about drawing any extra curves or anything. So it goes around and it flips up on that end. So let's go ahead and pick a tool. We're going to use our large 19 millimeter flat end mill. And let's go over here. Let's go to the cut parameters. We're going to go ahead and typically, if I did this for production, I would do a roughing and then leave some stock on the roughing, then do the finishing. We're just going to go to the finish, so we make sure we can get all the way through the model. So our stock is going to be 0. We're going to do a mixed cut direction, and well, actually, we're going to do conventional. I'm looking at the other model on the other screen. Okay, for the cutting side, we're just going to determine that from the 3D model. And what we're going to do here is, if I just did it a straight profile, I don't like the idea of this block of metal just sort of like loosening itself, and where's it going to go? Where's it going to? Is it going to damage the part or whatnot? So I'm going to use an actual step over. Okay, so I'm going to do step over 12 millimeters. Okay, and I'm going to do a step cut of 6 millimeters. So basically, it's going to work its way in. Okay, to get rid of this material. Okay, so let's go to cut levels. So where's our geometry? I know it loops up here on this little edge here, but we're going to say it's at the bottom. Okay, and for the total cut depth, we're going to pick that from the model. So going to pick 2 points. So we have a depth of 22 millimeters, and we want to use a specific depth. A lot of times when you're cutting metal, you have certain cutters, and that cutter, you have it to cut a certain depth, and you don't want to cut it more. You don't want to cut, obviously, you may want to cut it less, but probably not. So we're going to tell it that we want a depth for cut of 2 millimeters. And I'm going to check this box here to use distance as specified. So that's going to make sure that it uses the 2 millimeters per cut level, and it's not going to vary. Okay, we're going to do a level first with the depth, and for the entry and exit, we're going to be doing some tricky things with our entries and exits to make sure that we get the tool starting in the right direction, ending up in the right direction. So for this one, what we're going to do is going to do lines and arcs, and we're going to have a length of 20 for the approach, and we're going to do a linear engagement, and we're going to set that to 14. And for these, we're just going to do 0. 0 angle means that it's going to just follow the curve and extend out. Okay. And then for the exit, we're going to do linear. Okay, we're going to do a small length of 0.5. And these are all going to be 0 also. So you'll see what I'm getting at in just a second here. Okay, we're going to apply the entry and exit at each cut level. Okay, and let's see how that looks. Okay, so we don't want to extend it out too much on that one. I think what the problem is, I'm doing both of them at the same time. Let's remove that and generate that. Okay. So you see what happened here is I've got it extending out on the side and not on this end, because we're going to be using clamps probably to hold this down. So I don't want the toolpath to go into this area. So that's why I contained it really tight on the one end and then extended it out on the other. Let's go ahead and simulate that real quick. And let's put a color to this. We'll just leave that. Let's go ahead and simulate that. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this. Let's see if we can get that a little bit slower. Okay, so it's working its way in from the outside in, and it's just turning that area into chips. Go to the end. Okay, and let's go ahead, and what we're going to do here, we're just going to clone that. Okay, and we're going to change, select this curve here. Okay, and then we need to change the cut direction. Yeah, I guess on this one we need to change the actual entry to the other end here. Let's go to this one over here. Okay, we're going to go entry and exit. We're going to change that. We're going to make that actually.
You can also change the cut curve direction in Rhino too. You can show that too.
Let's just generate that. I don't normally do the curve direction here. Let me see the best way to do that. We'll just do it this way. Okay, we'll just change these to 20 here and change that to 0.5. And engage departure be 14. Change that to 5. See what that looks like. Okay. So again, I want to constrain it from going too far, in this direction. So let's go ahead and simulate that real quick. Let's speed that up a little bit. Okay. Okay. So we got those two areas machined out. We've got an open area right here. So you're kind of wondering, do I need to square this off? Do I need to do a pocket? What do I need to do? Well, it's really the easiest and the fastest way to do that. We're just going to do it with a straight up profile. We're going to run the tool along this edge, but we're going to give it an offset, enough of an offset so that it covers all of the area in the middle. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do another profile. Let's remove those. Okay.
You need to select the top down,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the bottom,
okay,
because
okay.
it's choked up.
So we're just going to work our way around. Again, you don't have to have your curves preset. You just pick them right from the model. Okay, so I got this curve that follows the top edge. Okay, so we're going to right click. And for the tool, again, the tool has to be smaller than your smallest diameter. So we're going to use the 6mm flat end mill. And for the cut parameters, let's go over here. This is fine. Let me tighten that up a little bit. Stock of 0. And we're going to do a mixed cut direction. We're going to cut side determined from the 3D model. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the step over in profiling. get to know that because it will come in handy many, many times for clearing areas that you can do just in a profiling operation. You won't have to add another operation. So we're just going to give it a cut width of 10 millimeters. Okay. And we're going to go a step over of 4. We don't really need to worry about like how far that is from here to here. I mean, obviously you can get an understanding of how many offsets you have, but I just put in an offset of 10. If it's too much, it's going to be constrained to this area anyway. The important one you may want to think about is your step over, just 4 millimeters right there.
You can also use that slider, that little tool, picker tool on the right side for the total cut, not the slider. That little button.
Oh, yeah.
To determine your cut width as well. So that's a nice handy tool that we actually introduced in 2025.
Okay. Excuse me. So let's look at the cut levels. The location of our geometry is at the top. Let's go ahead and calculate the depth. So it's at just about 2 millimeters. And we're going to use a depth per cut of 1 millimeter, and we're going to use distance as specified. The reason that we added this recently, I'm not sure if that was recent or not, Joe, but you really at times want to control how deep you're cutting, depending on the geometry and depending on the operation that you're using. The actual depth may not come out to the actual depth that you're wanting it to, just based on how it calculates the overall depth, and how much material is to remove and stuff. So if you use this, then you can tell it, make sure it doesn't cut any deeper than what I have specified. Okay, so let's do an entry and exit. We're going to use none. So what you'll see here is it started at one end, just worked its way around, stopped at the other end, stepped over, et cetera, and put a nice, almost like a facing operation with an open pocket, okay? Which came out very well for this particular area. Let's simulate that. And let's do, so it's just coming in, offsetting, just a simple profiling operation, able to clear all that material out just by using the step over adjustment. Okay. So there's that area cleared out. Okay, so we got some areas here on the outside that we need to trim up. So we got this area right here, and then we have this area right here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do those. We're going to use another profiling operation. Okay, and let's see. We're just going to use this. Sorry, we're going to use this top edge right here. Okay. And for the tool, we're going to use our 10 millimeter tool. Cut parameters. Determine using 3D model for the cut side. And let's look at, we do have a little bit of step over. I'm going to use 2 millimeters and 1 millimeter there. So for the cut depth, we're going to go ahead and do all the way to the bottom. Okay. And then we're going to do a rough depth. We'll make that, say, 3 millimeters. as specified. Okay, and then the entry and exit. We can do lines and arcs. I think we can just use those. Okay. So it's entering in, doing a little step over, and then working its way down. Okay. Okay, so that's that one. Let's go ahead and do this other area right here. I'm just going to copy or clone that. Okay. And I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to select. We can do this area right here. Okay. And we're just going to let it loop down. And I think that will be okay right there. Yeah, that should get it.
Make sure the cut level, cut geometry is set at bottom.
Yeah, we'll set it. Okay, for the tool, we're going to use the 10mm tool. Cut parameters, determine using 3D model. Okay, we got the same parameters as this other operation. So for the cut levels, so we're going to set it at bottom. And actually, Joe, I'm going to use the pick top because this isn't actually on the very bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do a pick top right at the top of the part. And then I'm going to do a depth all the way to the bottom of the part. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and leave everything else the same. Let's see what happens. Okay, that should work. Let's go ahead and simulate that. Okay. So we got those two features on that side. Let's see what else we got to go. Just a couple of more operations. Okay, so we're going to do another profiling operation on this front area right here. Again, I don't need to do a pocket. I'm just going to do just a straight profile with an offset wide enough to go cut all the way out here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a profiling operation. We're going to use this curve right here. Okay, with the tool, we'll go ahead and use our big tool here. Cut parameters, determine using 3D model, and I think the offset here, I'm just guessing here. Let's do 10. And let's do 5. Pretty big tool. Location cut geometry is at the bottom, and our cut depth, 11mm. So we'll set that to 4. Entry and exit. So let's just use lines and arcs. Do a linear, angle of 0, lines and arcs, linear, angle of 0. Just make sure it comes straight in and straight out. Let's just generate that. Okay. So as you can see here, it's plunging here and cutting, and then it's retracting here. I may want to give that a little bit more distance. Okay. 15. Okay, so it extends out. Let's go ahead and simulate that. A different color.